Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here, coming at you from the KnifeCenter, and on today's episode of Beat the Icon, we're asking the question, can anything out there duplicate the magic of the CRKT CEO? Let's find out. The CEO was designed by Richard Rogers, and it was released in 2019 by CRKT, and it was a massive hit right out of the gate. And while time will tell whether this has the same kind of staying power as some of the other iconic knives we've featured in this series, its influence on the industry was both immediate and widespread. Now, the success of this model has not only inspired other models inside CRKT's own lineup, but the competition out there has also targeted this knife very clearly with, we won't say imitators, but clearly things designed to compete with and inspired directly by the CEO. And as another mark of kind of the clout of this knife and the importance of this knife, you can see sort of the things that influenced this knife, yes, but it's also managed to sort of transcend those influences. By taking elements of the popular Kwaiken style, which predated the CEO, combining it with classic influences like the old school doctor's knife slip joint, and it brought these things together in a way that felt fresh, and in the process kind of gave rise to, or at least gave its name, lent its name to this new kind of subgenre of formal everyday carry folding knives, the executive knife. And it swept up some stuff that was pre-existing, as well as, of course, inspiring all of the competition as well. So let's talk about what those styling elements that this brings together are. Now, the CEO was certainly not the first long and narrow-bladed folding knife, but that is a key element to its identity. It's got almost this exceedingly narrow shape to its profile. The blade on the CEO, as you can see, is straight-backed and pretty clearly, to me at least, influenced by Kwaiken-style blades, but that's not something that all of the competition has necessarily hewn closely to. But the blade on the CEO completely hides inside the handle of the knife. All you see is the thumb stud for opening. And that is also a key element to the identity of the executive knife. It's got almost this pen-like quality in the pocket. Very narrow, very easy to carry, and that's furthered by this very deep carry clip here. Helps maintain that, almost pen-like appearance when it is clipped to your pocket. Even works in a vest pocket or a shirt front pocket, if you will. The other defining element you'll see here is the flattened cap. This will allow it to kind of stand on end if you wish, but this is where that influence from the doctor's knife comes in a little more. Not just that exceedingly narrow profile, but the classic doctor's knife with the squared butt would be used as sort of a pill crusher when pharmacists were dispensing medication that way. And while you're probably not doing that with the CEO, you do have that in place here. Now you'll see these kind of same elements carried through into these other CEO variants we're going to look at, but here is the original. Still right now, very affordable too, at about 45 bucks. For opening on the original, we do have a thumb stud, and it is in a perfect place for rapid access. You get your thumb behind it and it just pops open when you're ready. Interestingly, it is a single-sided thumb stud, and when you combine that with this pocket clip that carries the blade tipped down, those are typically two elements that are seen as a little bit of an old school or throwback, and for some knives, that could be the kiss of death. But the fact that this knife was so successful despite those quote-unquote drawbacks just further goes to show you how good this knife is. CRKT has also always done a really good job with the handles here, making them feel more premium than the materials or the price point would suggest. It is just an injection molded material, nothing special, but the texturing on it looks fancy. It has almost a carbon fiber-like sheen to it because of the radial pattern or fanned pattern they mold into the surface. Now, given the success, CRKT has expanded the CEO lineup to include several other variants, and the first one to be released kind of addressed those shortcomings, quote unquote, that I talked about. As good as this knife performed, there's going to be some people who wanted to see a couple things a little bit different, and that's what we saw in the CEO Flipper. You can get it in a black or a satin blade, and they've addressed those things. First and foremost, the flipper tab. So rather than thumb stud opening, you've got the flipper, much more of a modern design conceit than a single thumb stud. Also, the pocket clip here has been reversed, so it is tipped down and it is mounted while maintaining the flat butt cap. We've also given it reversibility for the first time as well. Because you can switch it around there, and because of the flipper, this is much more usable for lefties. Of course, the liner lock is a little more finicky to use in the left hand, but as you can see, certainly doable. So now you've got the expanded options here as well. We also saw a blade steel swap to AUS 8, a Japanese-made stainless steel, which is similar to, but a little bit different, a little bit more premium feeling than the 8CR series steel that we find on the standard CEO. Next to be released was the CEO Compact, coming in at about $50 right now, same as the CEO Flipper. And it is, as the name would suggest, a little more compact. 2.6-inch blade here, but the same styling and the same kind of upgrades or tweaks that we saw on the CEO Flipper. That being a flipper tab for one, a little bit smaller to use, so if you have larger hands, it might be a little more finicky, but it still feels great. IKBS ball bearings in all of the pivots of these knives, it should be mentioned. And then we still have the classic deep carry clip mounted from the tail with your reversibility. And I think as far as the standard CEO models go, this is my favorite handle. It's still injection molded, but it's got a metallic blue-gray feel to it, and honestly does not feel chintzy or cheap at all. It has a slightly more premium vibe to it. And if the Compact is still too large for you, we now have new for 2023, the CEO Micro Flippers. Two new variants. They are smaller, but they are a little more premium due to the materials here. About $60 for these, and actual aluminum handles as opposed to injection molded. There's two blade variants actually. You have the standard straight-backed profile with about a 2.36-inch blade. There's also a sheep's foot profile, and the blade there is about 2.2 inches. So each one under that 2.5-inch mark, and both of them using Sandvik's 12C27 stainless steel. Really good stuff, tough, takes a fine edge very nicely, and at least in my opinion, my favorite steel selection on the CEO lineup right now. Best part about these compact models, well, all of them really are very lightweight. 1.7 ounces for these aluminum handled versions, 1.6 for the CEO Compact, and the original CEO comes in at 2.1 ounces. So all of them don't take up a lot of space or a lot of weight in your pocket. And the original, especially at that 2.1 ounces, you definitely get a lot of capability for the weight you have to give up. But speaking of that capability, before we dive into some of the competition, let's talk about that narrow blade yet again. What does it give you? Well, one, works great as stylistically a letter opener, which kind of leans into the executive knife vibe a little bit. But in terms of actual cutting, the advantage of such a narrow blade is the ability to move in a curved line. If you're doing anything detailed, cutting out along a curve, you have a lot more agility there, a lot more ability to do such a cut than if you had a broader blade. So the precision combined with the length on this blade that gives you the cutting power and the agility to get the job done is truly a key element of the identity. All right, so what else is there? Let's say you like the concept, but the CEO model and CEO range itself isn't quite what you're looking for. Well, we don't have to go far to see some alternatives. We're gonna actually stay within CRKT's lineup to start with. And we're actually going to look at another Richard Rogers design to start with as well. This is the CRKT Seis. Richard Rogers design, and as you can see, very clearly inspired by his other design, the CEO. 3.32-inch blade. We've got 4116 stainless steel here, and priced right about the same as the original, $47 standard price for this knife. It has a few elements that feel a little more rugged, as well as a design that gives the opportunity for stuff that's more upscale as well. The rugged elements come in because we've got a bead blasted blade finish here rather than a satin finish or otherwise. Carries through to the aluminum, actually stainless steel frame. But the inlays here, while on this base model are a little more rugged, we've got a slightly rubberized texture to it. It feels a little better because it has an almost leather-like quality, And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe at some point in the future we saw some more premium versions of this knife, because it's real easy to spice this knife up even further with the right set of inlays. We don't quite have the squared off back end, but we do have a nice bail. We do have a fancier clip, not quite deep carry, but it is reversible. And then nice, great flipping action as well. Inset liner lock to keep things a little classy. Overall, I think a really compelling alternative. If you want something that feels a little more premium, one more CRKT to take a look at, and this is a Ken Onion design. This is the Stylus. Comes in about $60 right now. The blade is about the same as the original CEO, 3.18 inches, and tip to leading edge of the scale, virtually identical. Sharpened edge also almost virtually identical. Nice full flat grind on the drop point profile. Sculpted or milled aluminum handles with this nice kind of dark red color, almost burgundy, almost blood red perhaps. We've got a liner lock here, and then as far as the flipper opening action here, this is an assisted opening knife. Ken Onion, of course, very closely associated with assisted opening technology through the years, so it's kind of appropriate. And it gives you that nice clicky action every time. Has a good feel to it, and CRKT's system works really well on the close too. You don't have to fight it too much, and it even sucks the blade in right as you get toward the end. Kind of the system to beat, in my opinion, these days. Really nice knife to boot as well. All right, next up, we're going to start with some of the more affordable options, because part of the magic of the CEO, of course, is its affordability. And there's going to be plenty of people out there who want some more premium stuff. And honestly, most of the competition has taken things a little bit more premium. But we'll start with the budget alternatives. And how about the Buck Decatur? It's a very affordable knife compared to the CEO even, coming in just under $30 right now. And it maintains that long, narrow executive look, but is a little bit girthier here. We've got 3.5-inch blade. Steel is fairly simple, 7CR stainless. There's a G10 and a Cocobolo wood handle option. And if you like the vibe of the CEO but want just a little more meat behind your cuts, a little more meat in the hand as well, this could be a very good option. We have a deep carry clip, tip up. On the right side only in this case, we have a liner lock for your safety, and we have ball bearings in the pivot with a flipper. Pretty simple recipe, pretty close to the CEO flipper, but a little more to it, even if the steel might not quite give you the same amount of edge retention. Next, we've got some options from CIVIVI, and the cool thing I think that CIVIVI's managed to do is they've got a few things in their lineup that feel competitive to the CEO, but they also don't feel like they were certainly not ripping off the CEO. They don't feel like they were perfectly targeted towards the CEO, which is kind of a neat trick to pull off if that's what they intended to do. But we'll start with the Exarch and the closely related Chronic. The Chronic has a clip point blade and a standard flipper. The Exarch, same handle, but we have a drop point blade and a front flipper. And affordability-wise, about $49 for this knife right here with the G10 handles and the D2 blade. So definitely more edge retention than any of the CEO models can offer right now. They've also given us some fancier options with some wood handles as well as some Damascus steel blade options, but the base models feel more appropriate for the comparison. Handle-wise, you've got the boxy thing going on, but it's a little more octagonalized, both in terms of the profile and the cross section. Deep carry clip with reversibility, non-inset liner lock with ball bearings, and the front flipper in this case works great. The standard flipper on the Chronic also works really well. Blade, not quite as narrow. We've got a high hollow grind though to keep the edge itself nice and thin. And this one kind of gives off vibes a little more old school pocket knifey in a way than perhaps the Doctor's Knife inspired CEO, but certainly a very good choice and something that's going to give you a blade right about the same length as well. 3.22 inches, tip to scale, very close. Sharpened edge though, the CEO is going to give you more, but of course the D2 steel, the edge you have is going to last a good bit longer. Next, we've got the Lumi, a Justin Lundquist design. Maybe not quite as immediately apparent, but to me, this and the CEO Compact feel pretty darn comparable. Price on the Lumi, just under $50, 2.56-inch blade, and an upgraded Sandvik steel here, 14C28N. Still plenty tough, more edge retention than the 12C27, and of course stainless as well. I like the narrow tapering profile to the blade here. We have a high hollow grind, stone washed finish in this case. Nice smooth G10 handles. It's almost like a pebble in your hand in a way. Gray is also available, and that would even more closely match up to the CEO Compact. Deep carry pocket clip, it is reversible. We have a liner lock and ball bearings, and we have a top flipper in this case, which can be operated conventionally with your index finger, like a standard flipper, or you can even use your thumb operating it like a front flipper. And both of them work very well, even for folks like me who can sometimes get a little clumsy with that opening style, but very nice little option here as well. All right, next we'll start moving up the ladder a little bit in terms of more premium materials with the Boker Kaizen, a very cool knife, and especially the original with its black handle scales, very clearly inspired by the CEO. It's one of the few competitors as well to even maintain that flat butt cap on its design too. Standard versions come with black G10, so not an injection molded material here. Has a nice milled pattern to it and a D2 blade. Nice and thin too, in addition to the narrow profile. You can see the cross section there. You've got a full flat grind and a swedge, much like the CEO. In fact, that's another thing that will help that going around of corners, removing that drag from the spine. You got a great blade shape right here. This version right here actually is a KnifeCenter exclusive with the Coyote Tan G10 handles and an S35 VN blade. Regular price on this just $75 too. So you got a lot of excellent edge retention for your money right there. And this knife really does lean into that, hidden blade and pen-like profile when the knife is closed. That flipper tab, you might think, in fact, I did when they first released this design, that it would border on unusable with how narrow, how much, or how little is sticking out. But pleasantly surprised that that's not been the case. It's still very useful, very usable. Once you get used to it, that's the caveat. It is a little bit more finicky than, your big old flipper tab that something like the Buck Decatur there might have. But once you know what you're doing, once you know what to expect, no problems at all. Next up, of several Bokers that we have to talk about, is the Kwaiken Air. Now, the original Kwaiken, which here's a newer version of it, was designed by Lucas Burnley. Clearly, I feel had an influence on the original CEO. In a way, that influence has come full circle because we've now got the Kwaiken Air models. Two sizes, the smaller version, very similar in size. Oh, we'll hold the flipper up. Very similar in size to the CEO flipper. There is also a larger size, but it's taken what the Kwaiken profile has been known for and narrowed it down. In my mind, clearly a response to the CEO's success. This one right here is a KnifeCenter exclusive with the red burgundy micarta handles and gold liners. This comes with an S35 VN blade as well. Just about $80 for this knife, just over a 3-inch blade on it. VG10 is the standard offering on other handle materials, of which there are several to choose from. We've got the liner lock, we've got ball bearings in the pivot, and a standard flipper tab. There you've got the hidden blade profile when closed, single-sided deep carry pocket clip on this in a tip-up configuration, and excellent flipping action overall. Very cool choice and alternative to the CEO. All right, next up, we've got to talk about Brad Zinker. When you talk about a formal knife or a more gentlemanly knife that has a long, narrow profile, Zinker's your man. He's your go-to. Stuff like his Urban Trapper design have been around for a long time. It's been very successful and influential in my mind. This one right here happens to be another KnifeCenter exclusive with an S35 VN blade and resin handles designed to mimic ivory. This one comes in about just under $100 right now for its almost 3.5-inch blade. But this is kind of a design that we feel has gotten kind of swept up into the executive knife genre, even though it's been around a lot longer than the CEO has. As such, it's got a little bit more of its own identity, of course, but it's got the same characteristics, the same hallmarks that make the CEO great at what it does work out for this knife too. But like with the Kwaiken Air, this is a case where the CEO's influence kind of comes full circle a little bit, and that's with a spin-off of the Urban Trapper in Boker's lineup. Came out about a year and a half or so after the CEO did, the Urban Trapper Linear. Now, I don't know if Brad Zinker had a version of this out custom-wise before the CEO came out. If someone in the comments section knows, please let us know. But the fact that Boker brought this out, the timing of when they brought it out, and it has a bit more of a boxy profile to it. I don't know, what do you guys think? Is that something of a response to the CEO? Let me know. Price on this is a bit more dear. We're about $140 for this version with green micarta handles, a VG10 blade about 3¼ inches long, deep carry, Zinker style pocket clip there. Pretty hidden blade from the closed position. And really it kind of is that boxy nature that leads me to lean into that a little bit more for the CEO comparison. Great flipping action, as you can see, and it also works as a front flipper. You can slow roll it very easily. Let's try to make a fool out of myself real quick. You can flick it pretty easily as well too. Not too many versions of this are available right now. There is a wood-handled version also, but right now at least those are the only two in the lineup. Now we get to another design that kind of predates the CEO by a little bit, and that is from designer Michael Zieba with the MS3. And this is another knife that kind of got sucked into the orbit of the CEO. You can see it both on his custom versions as well as the production collab version with MKM, Maniago Knife Makers out of Italy. It comes in a frame lock version, that's the MKM Flame, and the MKM Flame Lite has your liner lock and your tail-mounted deep carry pocket clip. So more of a direct competition to the CEO flipper, but in a slightly smaller size. It kind of bridges the gap between the standard and the compact CEO. We've got about a 2.8 inch blade, I should say. M390 steel, so fantastic edge retention, even though you're dealing with less blade itself. We've got the spear point or the penknife blade style right here, as well as a single-edged dagger grind available. This particular one is a KnifeCenter exclusive with olive wood handles, although there are several handle options in the lineup right now, both on the Flame and Flame Lite. We've got an inset liner lock and ball bearings in the pivot, so guess what? Flipping action is phenomenal as well. But you've got that same pen-like quality with the MS3 and the Flame designs. The Flame Lite gives you that deep carry clip with the very subtle aesthetics from the outside when it is pocketed, but pull it out and it is ready to go. You can also see an evolution of the MS3 design in the Michael Zieba 6. This is one of his standard versions right here. This one also happens to be a KnifeCenter exclusive with these particular laser engraved options. About $395 for this. It is a higher end piece for sure. We've also got MagnaCut blade steel here. Probably the most balanced and one of the most sought after stainless steels on the market today due to its performance. This one kind of fancies things up a bit with the Devil's Tail pocket clip, maybe a little less gentlemanly. I would definitely agree with you there, but same kind of vibes going on. Great flipping action. You got a frame lock on this one right here. Here it is next to the CEO flipper for a size comparison. Very cool knife in any case. One more cool one to take a look at, then I'll show you a couple little oddballs perhaps. But first, before we get to those, the Ocaso Knives Solstice. Pretty cool story behind this brand actually. It was started by some former Cold Steel workers before Cold Steel was bought out by GSM Outdoor. And the design on this knife was a collaboration between them and Andrew Demko, one of the designers on top of the world right now. And this is the Solstice, $230 for this particular version that comes with titanium handles and an S35 VN blade. Blade length itself is listed as 3.5 inches, but when we hold it up here next to the standard CEO flipper, you can see it's a difference that's not as huge in person as it might be, or as it might seem on paper. Blade length, yeah, you get a little bit more, but sharpened edge, almost the same, and overall length, also almost identical. The Ocaso certainly maintains the boxy profile of the CEO as well as the hidden blade when it is closed. Even maintains a little bit of that squared off end. Even though you don't have the pill crusher butt, you do have a nice flat section, and you have a very cool take on the deep carry pocket clip. It is actually mounted opposite the side that it's actually going to clip on. It's nested in the handle, single screw there to keep it flush or to keep it secure, and it wraps around the tail. Pretty nice thing going on there. I also really dig the pivot that we have on here, secured from the backside, decorative on the front, and then none of that matters if it doesn't flip and use well, and guess what? It flips well. And with S35 steel and this type of profile, it's going to use quite well also. Definitely check these out. There's some other handle versions available in addition to just the titanium as well. All right, now for a few that maybe aren't quite as obvious and maybe aren't quite as directly influenced by the CEO, but still kind of walk an interesting path and an interesting comparison. And the first is the Tactile knife company Rockwall. Not as kind of achingly narrow as the CEO can be, but has some similar traits in a way. It has a kind of boxy profile, not like the CEO, but in similar style to the CEO. We have a deep carry pocket clip, kind of a boxy rear end. We've got a very nearly completely hidden blade. We've also got thumb studs on this knife. One thing you may have noticed, the competition up to this point has kind of eschewed the thumb stud and gone with the flipper variation that the CEO series has also gone to. But the Rockwall maintains that thumb stud, and like the CEO, has a great placement for it and put in such a way that it just pops open oh so satisfyingly. There you go, really nice. Definitely a more premium option. It is US made, it is, titanium and magna cut. As such, standard price on these, about $300. So let's say you like your CEO, but want something a little more tactical. The tactical executive, if you will, maybe check out the Benchmade Fact. Comes in about $225. You've got an S30V blade, very nearly 4 inches in length, but you've got that same narrowness that the CEO enjoys. Kind of a saber height flat grind with an aggressive swedge on the back as well. Milled aluminum handles, reversible deep carry pocket clip, dual thumb studs, and an ambidextrous lock as well. So the whole knife is righty or lefty friendly. That lock is the crossbar style axis lock. It allows you to wrist flick that blade open and closed rather quickly, in addition to being more subtle if you would rather do that. Blade is not quite as narrowly hidden or completely hidden as the CEO archetype, but this still is a knife that is going to carry very narrowly and very easily in the pocket while giving you a ton of utility for the size and space demanded of it. Next up, and getting even weirder, this one makes sense in hand, even if it may not make any sense at all on paper, and that's the Spyderco Ikuchi. Here it is. Check it out next to the standard CEO. To me, in hand, these make sense, even though the profiles are pretty different. But the Ikuchi has a nice gracefulness to it, maintains the gentlemanly or formal qualities of the CEO archetype, but spins it off a little bit more. About $170 for this knife. It's made in Taiwan. You've got a 3¼ inch S30V blade with the trailing point profile. You've got a G10 and carbon fiber peel ply laminate on the front of this knife. Reversible deep carry clip. Nice subtle application of Spyderco's wire clip right here. And you have the compression lock, which allows you to open and close that knife in a finger-safe manner. And there also is the other thing that really reinforces the CEO comparison in my mind, is that completely hidden blade going on. Flipper tab or a flipper hemicircle here on the back, semicircle, but it works very, very intuitively and very easily as well. You can do the lighter flick with it. have a little bit more fun than some flippers out there. But I think it just works. It maintains the formal qualities, gives you some good performance, gives you a little bit more in terms of, you know, your shape than your standard pen like CEO. One more I want to show you before we head off, and this one might be the weirdest. What out there really leans into the hidden blade aspect? Well, how about an OTF Auto? How about the Microtech UTX-70? About 250 bucks for a standard version. And if you're comparing this to something like the CEO Compact, or actually in this case, the CEO Micro Flipper would be even more appropriate. Tell me that isn't a cool comparison right there, huh? Aluminum handles, just like the CEO Compact, although not just like the CEO Compact. 2.4 inches on the blade. This one is the drop point with partial serrations. But the cool thing about Microtechs and the entirety of their lineup pretty much is there's always extra options. You've got different blade finishes, different blade shapes, different handle coatings, different colors to choose from. You get a really fun action, very narrow profile when in the retracted position, and a very completely hidden blade in that position as well. Maybe not quite as subtle of a pocket clip design with the double bevel or the double pinch point here and the tiny glass breaker sticking up out of the top, but still, if you're looking for an executive out the front automatic knife, I think UTX-70 is where you gotta go. All right, that's all I have to show you today. I think this really shows the impact that the CEO has had on the industry, an impact that we're still seeing today as new models continue to crop up, clearly living in the shadow, or at least trying to live up to the archetype of the CEO. But let me know what you thought of these comparisons. Let me know if you've got some other CEO alternative suggestions down in the comment. Let me know overall, over everything, whether any of these knives hold a candle to the original CEO. Would love to hear your thoughts down below. Also, to get your hands on any of these knives, check out the links in the description as always. Those are going to take you to KnifeCenter.com. And while you're there adding something to your cart, you can remember that we've got our Knife Rewards program in place. Because the cool thing about checking out one of these knives today is you get to have some free money to spend on your next one. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center, and I'm signing off. See you next time.